business tonight is to take consensus on our instructional committee meeting minutes dated May 7th, 2018.
Who are we starting with?
Let's start with Ms. Raccio.
Yes.
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 Yes, with corrections.
Yes.
Yes. Those will go forward. Okay, moving forward. Curriculum and possible consensus. Carrie, do you want to talk, or do you want me to just call them straight up? The first one is German.
Yep. So what we can do is lump together 3A and 3B for the German units. So Kim, do you want to come up?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Aye.
So at our last meeting, you approved units 1 through 3 for the 3 levels of German, and Mr. Fleischman and I are continuing to work on the subsequent units for those 3 courses. So we have a few more that we're finishing this month that will come to you in September. But this is where we're at, and we're seeking approval for these in the interim. A really neat thing about our German units is that each cluster of 3 units mirrors a state of Germany. And there's a lot of, in world language in general, there's a lot of upcycling of vocab and grammar that happens. But I think we've done a nice job with German, with highlighting what it is that's upcycled and shown the maturation of those grammar points as they grow with the students.
Have you, everybody signed up for their classes for next year?
They are.
And how about the number of German kids signing up for German? Not enough yet to have them in both schools?
No. I don't know the exact number, but there's enough to run one healthy section of level 1, 2, and 3. So meaning, they're not on the cusp of being a number like 12 students, but they're not 25 either.
Yes.
I looked through and I found the vocabulary, everything very useful, not in isolation, something that you would use in everyday talking if you were in Germany. So I found that to be very good.
Thank you. We try to work with a lot of the pre-assessments too to make those connections. Even though sometimes a pre-assessment in world language will seem a little rudimentary or elementary, think about how you accept and decline an offer in English. Think about how you ask for clarification so that you are making that connection that, oh, these are hugely everyday things that I'm learning. Thank you.
Very good.
Any other questions? What level is German 3 taught at?
Honors.
Honors level.
Mhm.
And 2?
Academic.
Academic. So to get to 3 is a little more rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions?
What if they're not ready for AP? Or are they, for the most part?
We don't offer German AP right now.
I thought she's,
Honors.
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 Level
Sorry.
3, yeah.
forget that question.
So we, in all of our world languages, levels 1 and 2 are offered only at the academic level, and then we make an automatic shift to honors when we reach level 3, except for Latin going forward, as we talked about last month. Given the components to that, we'll move that to being an honors level 2. But once you start to look at the expectation of the depth of the thinking that we're asking the students to do in the second language in level 3 across the board, it really does merit that honors weight. To not offer academic at level 3 also is a bit of a contentious thing. It wouldn't work in something like German where we don't have the numbers. The numbers wouldn't support offering an academic and an honors 3.
I don't want to see children not take a language in the 3rd year because they're not ready for honors but can do academic if there's that much of a difference. I hope that's not happening.
We're not seeing that. We're seeing that sometimes with 8th graders coming into 9th grade in Spanish and French only, because those are the languages where we have about 150 freshmen or so entering in at level 3, and we only offer level 3 at the honors level. So we do end up having parent conversations about, this is why this is appropriate for your child. This is all that he or she has mastered in level 2. This is why we're confident that they will be successful. But all we ever really end up seeing on that front is the students opting to take 2A as freshmen, which is fine, and then progress on to 3H when they're sophomores.
2A.
2 academic rather than taking the teacher's recommendation to go to 3 honors as freshmen.
Okay.
A handful of students will say, like you said, maybe it's that honors
Yeah.
assignation to the class, or maybe it's the other classes that they're taking are also honors, and this is where they feel comfortable but we don't see it deterring. We don't see more than what an average drop off would be between 2 and 3 because our 3 automatically becomes honors.
Thank you.
So I do have a question.
Yes.
So, Kim, with regards to mastery-based learning and developing new curriculum, are you finding it more challenging to come up with those, the performance indicators, or is it more helpful in
I
developing
think
the curriculum?
it's helpful, and I think it's validating too, because starting this year, so that being German and Latin, those are the languages that we've revised this year. So we've embedded our world language standards and indicators into these units, and also the transferable skills. And it's really just been validating that, okay, what we would have done as a summative pre-mastery based learning is still what we're doing as a summative, and how nicely it ties into what we identified as the benchmark most important things. World language is a neat area because it really lends itself to mastery-based learning. It's a proficiency-based
Right,
area.
okay,
So
that's good to hear.
The language.
yeah.
Yeah.
Project to
It's been validating and I think less scary once we've started to dig in these smaller groups and say, we've identified these 4 standards as of the utmost importance. Look at the assessments we create; they all tie back in, and
Right. Takes away some of the scariness of mastery-based learning.
it
Good.
does.
Good.
It does.
Thanks.
Anything else? Are we taking consensus tonight? Okay, let's take consensus to approve our German 1 and 2 units, letters A and B on the agenda. Ms. Raccio?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, with the correction.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward, let's chunk together C, D, and E, the Italian. Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
So Italian is our other language that we hadn't revised in a handful of years. So we've spent this year revising the levels 1, 2, and 3. We're actually looking to go AP with Italian 4 in the next couple of years. So the revision of Italian has really had that end in mind, knowing what the College Board expects AP to look like, knowing that we have 4 years to get there as opposed to 5 or 5.5, and kind of working from there. So we haven't started on Italian 4, which we hope will eventually be an AP yet, but we've been working hard on the 3 precursor years to it. And there are, similar to German, there are more Italian units to follow on September 4th.
Any talk, I know I should have talked to Dr. Menz about this, I might have, of moving the Italian down to the middle school level. There's an interest, I know that. Because French is really not as popular as it used to be, am I right?
Well, French is getting more popular at the middle school level.
Really?
Yeah, ever since we had the introduction of elementary Spanish, we started to see, on any given year, we now have 2 sections of French running in a grade as opposed to 1. But we're not seeing the fruits of that yet in high school French. So our high school French numbers tell a different story right now. We'll see what happens with those students that identified French in 6th grade. Do they continue with it in high school, and how far do they continue? But we haven't talked about introducing our other languages at the middle school yet. It might be something to talk about if we ever kind of do a full shakeup of the middle school schedule. But the way that the teaming works and the scheduling works, it's already a little bit of a sticky thing with scheduling that we have that second world language. So scheduling for that and the anomaly in math are difficult things now as they are. So if we ever kind of talk about upsetting the whole schedule at the middle school, we could talk about introducing a lot more. If we were to be able to break out of that,
Well,
the
they
team.
just changed it, so I don't know if we're gonna want to upset it again.
Maybe upset was the wrong word. Revising. Yeah.
Okay. To be continued.
Any other questions about Italian? Let's move forward with consensus. Ms. Raccio?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, with the correction.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, moving forward, our earth science textbook.
So I'm going to speak to this. I know Mrs. O'Donnell was planning on coming, but I'm not exactly sure. We could, if you don't mind me doing it, or if you want to move it around and see if, just for
You
timing
know
reasons.
what? Why don't we put it on the back burner just in case she gets
Okay.
here? We'll move it
And
down.
then I can always speak to it if we get through
Great.
things a little faster.
Great. Okay, so let's talk about Algebra 2 and Calculus. All right.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Christine.
I'll pass this around if you want to look at it. But it is the Algebra 2 textbook that we are recommending. Guess I'm shorter than Kim. So this is year 2 of our high school textbook adoption. Last year we adopted a geometry textbook because our geometry textbooks at the high school were about 30 years old. Algebra 2 is currently about 20 years old. So this is the next textbook adoption at the high school level. This is actually the committee reviewed 3 textbooks. This is the same series as our geometry. So it's a nice continuum from the geometry program. It's nice that the students coming from geometry are very familiar with the online platform of the textbook. They've made some upgrades to the online platform, which we will get for both Algebra 2 and geometry with this adoption.
Each child will have their own textbook, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions?
Is there an online version?
Yes.
Every student will have their own license?
Yes.
Yes.
When you look at the focus on writing in response to content, and it only got inadequate, would that be word problems that you're looking at in that section?
And adequate. For the big ideas, everything got above, I think.
No, that was the one that had adequate, and I was just wondering, was that word problems or? Down at the very last.
Oh,
Instructional
focus on writing
support.
in response
Yeah.
to content. So that's just where the students are writing written responses, which tends to be someplace in math that we tend to supplement
Okay.
with textbooks.
Any other questions?
Was this already? Mrs. Latour, was the 46,000 already in the budget that we already approved? Yes, if you recall, either last month, I think it was last month, what we did was we moved the textbook purchase to this year and removed that money from the budget, and we will be purchasing it prior to June 30th. That is also the case for the science text that's on the docket for this evening. Thank you.
927.
Any other questions on Algebra 2? Yes.
Just, I was noticing that, because of my age, but I was noticing that print is small.
That's the teacher edition.
Their age.
Okay.
That's
okay.
that's
Which
the
is
teacher
what they should
edition.
have it bigger.
Yeah.
I know. I was,
said
yeah,
it
that
first.
was,
Well, they're just trying to fit more on the page.
I know. I was,
Any other questions about Algebra 2? Christy, do you want to talk about calculus? And then we'll take consensus?
On both?
Yeah.
Sure. So calculus is a.
To me, so.
I know Mr. Votto wants to look at that,
I know.
right?
He's been waiting to look at it, yes.
All right, so when we've transitioned to Common Core and aligned our courses way back when, we eliminated pre-algebra, and all students in 9th grade start their courses with Algebra 1. And when we did that, we really focused at providing 4th-year courses for students that may struggle in math and need a 4th-year course. So we added our topics in mathematics, we added our probability and statistics class, so we added a lot of those classes, but we didn't add any classes on the higher end of students, for students that are performing well in math. We did change our calculus AP class 2 years ago, and we split it up into a calculus 1 AP, which is semester 1 full credit, and a calculus 2 AP, because then we were trying to teach the AP calculus, which is really Calc 1 and Calc 2 at the college level. We were trying to teach it in 1 year, and we weren't getting through. So now our calculus, our AP calculus is very, very rigorous. So it's a big jump for some students, and we don't really have an opportunity for them to take a 4th-year class beyond pre-calc to support what they need to do in college. So this would be an opportunity for students to essentially take Calculus 1 over the course of a year at a more application basis. So with the business, we look at the business majors and some of the science majors that require calculus in college, and to support that knowledge that the students need. So that's the rationale for adding this course into our course catalog. And we would be writing the curriculum for it next year, and then it would be for implementation 1920.
Questions?
I'd just go back, you started by saying that the Algebra 1, there are students taking it in 8th grade though.
Correct, and this would primarily be for those students. Yep.
All right.
Yep. I'm saying we added courses for the students that were starting in Algebra 1 as freshmen. We didn't add courses in for students that are starting at geometry.
Okay.
Sorry.
So what textbook would be used for this? Is it a current one, but you're just going to use
Yep.
the Calc 1 portion?
Correct. So 2 years ago, when we switched over to Calc 1 and Calc 2 and separating those, we bought new textbooks. So the textbook that was used prior to that for calculus will be used for this course, so it will not require a new purchase.
Okay, thank you.
Christy, are we preparing for Calc AB or Calc BC?
Both. That's why we separated.
So our AP Calc classes, students are taking both
So if they take Calc 1, it would be the AB. If they take both, they'd be prepared for both,
Okay, thank you.
which is why we separated,
Yeah.
because we were never really preparing students for the BC.
Right. How many students are taking Calc BC, taking the actual exam? Do we have,
I don't know this year how many sat for it, but I know we had a full section of both of those courses at each school, a full section, so like about 20 students
great.
in
Thank
each
you.
of them.
Any other questions?
Is this an ECE class?
This particular one, no.
No, our,
Calculus is, yes.
okay.
The AP calculus is.
So that means that if students, a lot of students who do the ECE choose not to do the AP test because they're already getting the ECE credits, so it may not be a accurate.
It depends on which college they're
Well,
going to.
yeah.
That's right. I have a lot to say
that-
about
I
that.
know.
Is that becoming an issue though? I mean, I've heard that many high schools are doing away with some of the AP courses because of that fact. They can get college credit for taking the particular course.
Well,
It really, I mean, really, the colleges kind of dictate that. It depends on which credits the colleges will accept. So some colleges, your upper echelon, they don't take either of them. So it doesn't matter which one we offer it at. It's just showing a rigorous line of study for the students at the high school level. But it really is dictated by the colleges they're applying to and whether or not they accept AP credit or whether or not they would take the transfer credits from UConn.
any other questions or comments? Okay, let's move for consensus.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
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 thank you. Thank you, Christine. Okay, changing gears into pastry and baking. Let's do I and J together.
Okay, the first item is our baking and pastry arts textbook. I had ordered a copy to be delivered, which had not arrived. This textbook that we're using is a textbook that is aligned with Gateway Community College's textbook, because the addition of this course is specifically created for college and career pathways credit at Gateway. So in reviewing textbooks, we went with this particular textbook because it is the textbook that is used at Gateway Community College, and I believe we had one, but I found out that it was borrowed and she had to return it, and my copy that I ordered as an extra hadn't come, so I wish I had one to pass to you. But in reviewing the text, our instructor, Kim Shoemaker, in order to be a CCP instructor at Gateway, needed to audit the course. So she was at Gateway for this past semester, taking the baking course on an audit basis, used the textbook, and really thought, yes, it's the book to use, one, because it's aligned, and she really liked its accessibility for our students, because it would be purposeful for a new baker as well as someone who's taking a community college gateway level course. They like the recipes that were in there, the suggestions and recommendations for replacements and recipes. So that's
Questions? Karen?
Is there an opportunity for our students to learn, to receive college credit for this?
Absolutely, yes. That was
Okay.
an entire, that's what the CCP, College Career Pathways, or what they call College Now. So this will be our second course that students, in the culinary, that students will be able to earn college credit
That's great.
for. Within the culinary program, they can get Hospitality 101 credit.
Mhm.
That's with the culinary program, but we've seen an increased interest in our students in baking. And there was the opportunity to align it with Gateway. So we wrote the course and put it in, implemented it,
Great.
and here it is. That's the curriculum that is also here this evening. Also very happy to inform you all that we applied for a Perkins Enhancement grant. So we had $29,380 for new improved equipment to support this course. And due to the interest, we were also, we had enough to fit this course within the program without much impact to the other courses.
I think we might need some samples.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
If we had printed the copies, everybody that I've shown the curriculum to that could see the color version with the pictures on the first page of all the units, all remarked and said, this is a course I want to take. And obviously, if you have the opportunity to visit any of the events that the program puts on, whether it's the pop-up shops or at the restaurant there, the goal ultimately is they want to be able to produce the baked goods, like rolls, for example, when they're serving burgers and so forth, that the bake shop is actually producing the rolls. So when the culinary is doing the program and said, well, here's our sandwiches, well, they're put on the bread, the rolls, the baked goods. They do an incredible job already with the cookies that they do now, but it's really getting into that more advanced baking and bread making, roll making, so forth. Even some of the candies that will go much further. So I don't blame you. I hope there's many opportunities for you to get a sample.
Any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
How are we able to tie any of this curriculum into capstone opportunities at this point, or is that something a few years out still?
I think it's one of the areas that we look at as a potential opportunity, because we have kids that are doing independent studies and going beyond within the culinary program. We have the third year management program, and a capstone could be within the management class. Some of the things that you've seen, like the pop-up shops, were additional opportunities and expansions. So we would have to look and see, well, what opportunities could be there. One of our students, it was kind of her capstone to lead the
So as we look to how we're managing capstone moving forward, as you know or may know, next year there are opportunities for capstone experience within other courses. So CNA is one of those choices. Right. So we chose to make that step forward in certain select areas to test the water, to ensure that there were good natural fits to the selections that we picked, with the hopes of the following year expanding it even further. As our student population grows and their schedules become tight with all of their coursework with what they want to do, we want to be able to ensure that they have the opportunity for capstone in other given subjects that align well to the concept. So next year, when we look at ag science, we looked at some of the culinary experiences, we looked at CNA, we looked at world language as natural fits that we could definitely move forward with for 18-19, with the hopes of expanding further in 19-20.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's move towards consensus.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, with the corrections.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about K through 3 phonics.
Hello. All right. So this is a K-3 word work phonics scope and sequence. We had a committee that reviewed the current skills in the curriculum in grades K through 3 in the areas of phonics and word work, and developed these scope and sequence curriculum guides to assure a progression of skills with no gaps for students in these foundational reading skills. The scope and sequence will assure vertical progression of key skill development and foundational reading. And we made sure that we aligned it to the district reading assessment, ERLA, as well as each of the curriculum units, so that it would be easy enough for teachers to guide their instruction and pace out their instruction based on the needs of their students.
Questions?
No.
No, I like this.
Thank you.
It spells it out,
Yes, it does.
something that was needed, I think.
You definitely needed.
Anybody else?
Imagine there was a whole time when we didn't want to even do phonics. Can you imagine? And that's why
I remember.
That's such a problem.
Yeah.
That whole language.
Okay, let's move for consensus. Ms. Raccio?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will circle back. I think I saw Kate come in. Come on up to talk about our high school earth science textbook.
I apologize, the time change got me. So Earth Science is the first of our new textbooks that align to the new curriculum that we're implementing next year. It became a priority because Earth Science moved from an 11th, 12th grade elective course to a 9th grade core course, and the material just didn't fit, and it wasn't going to be suitable for the students. So there were 5 different books that we looked at. I gave them to each school. They took time to review. Some did it during PLGs. We met together. They looked at the books, and they loved the HMH science dimensions. They thought it wasn't just aligned to the next generation science standards, but it really was driven by the next generation science standards. They also all had an opportunity to see, they have a very robust online set of resources called Ed Your Head. And so the teachers also had an opportunity to log in and at least get a sneak peek of what the online platform looked like for students. I believe it comes with 6 years when we purchase the textbooks.
What was that last comment?
It comes for 6 years with the purchase of the textbooks.
What happens after 6 years?
You got paid for it.
That's a really good question.
Because our textbooks are always
You
more
go
than
through
6 years old.
renewal. I think, it's certain textbooks, it's different timeframes, but you do go through a renewal process, which is what we're currently doing for world language with our Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 texts. Our online subscription is up, so we budgeted appropriately in next year's budget for that.
And they have like 1-year renewals or 3-year renewals.
Or
so you
7-year
decide.
renewals, yeah,
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
So you kind of, you go with that 6 years, and then you have to kind of work
then they have you
your
on the hook, and
negotiation
whatever
for
they-
either a
whatever they're gonna
1 year
charge
or,
yeah,
exactly.
got it.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Earth science?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that concludes A through K. Moving forward, are we ready to go forward?
Yep, if we could give Mr. Loomis a minute to get his presentation up and going.
I was gonna take it home. So I was gonna read it tonight.
Give him a magnifying glass.
Mr. Loomis.
Hey, Mike, I was saying to Kathy with the pastry class, I could see a kid coming in, especially if you lived in my house. My father ate my homework.
You know, there are so many kids today going into becoming chefs. This is perfect. It is perfect.
Yeah.
Any young boy.
Absolutely perfect.
On science note, I was glad to see that they finally brought earth science back, making it mandatory. My college students are clueless. No, seriously.
It was always a course
Coolest of
subject.
a lot of things.
But they don't know the basics. Geology, meteorology, astronomy.
Igneous rock, what's that?
Comes from Get me going. Yeah, but they don't. They take time.
this is about an hour long.
I was gonna go on 2 hours, but, you know.
Whatever it takes, you know?
We're here for you.
I don't have to go to work tomorrow. Joking.
So, to start out, I want to share that last year this presentation was given by Rob Mancusi and Melissa Isles, and this year it's just me. I have to thank Susan Rowdy, for her work compiling over 45 different surveys and putting that together, and that's what you have in front of you. I couldn't have done it without her. I also want to point out that some of the slides will cite Dr. Joanne Freiberg from the Connecticut State Department of Education, the consultant for climate and for bullying that we have. And I've gone to some of her trainings, and she does a spectacular job, and I did get permission from her to use some of her information and items that I've learned. To start out, this may look familiar. I looked at the presentation that was given last year, and there are some items I wanted to keep, and there were some items that obviously new data that I wanted to share. The beginning is the national standards for climate. And I wanted to share that. I know there are some new board members, and I'm sure you're aware of these, but there are 5 national school climate standards, and this is what, again, drives everything that we do. Climate is all about the quality of relationships that we have, and so we're talking how well people within the school treat each other. Adult to adult, adult to student, student to adult, student to student. All of that is encompassed in this. And communication is not just verbal, obviously, it's nonverbal, it's abuse of inherent powers and advantages, tone of voice, all of that is included. And I want to mention school connectedness. It's a strength-based model. It's a researched model for improving climate, excuse me. And I want to mention this because I want you to view the results that you see today through this lens of school connectedness. And I actually want to start out with a few informational slides about the power and the impact of school connectedness. So what we see here, students that feel connected to school. So where there's high school connectedness, there is very low instances of suicide or emotional distress. Where there is low school connectedness, that's where we have very high incidences of emotional distress and suicide. School connectedness is so important. Here, instead of emotional distress, we have likely to use different substances. Again, kids that feel very connected, they are below the line, a standard deviation away from use of different substances. And the students that are not at all connected, very likely to use these substances. And the last one I'll show about school connectedness is deviant or violent behavior. You see the pattern. Kids that are very connected are much less likely to be deviant and have misbehaviors. So school connectedness is extremely important, and that was the lens that I looked at our data and our results this year. To improve school connectedness, we want to see high scores from students in these 5 areas. So we want students that feel close to the people at the school, peers, caring adults. We want students that are happy to be at the school. We want students to feel part, a sense of belonging. We want there to be adults at the school that treat the students fairly, or at least that's the perception from the students. And we want students that feel safe, physically, emotionally, and intellectually. I've kind of highlighted caring adults there because that ties into another strength-based model, which is resiliency. And one of the most important factors for resiliency, or perseverance, if you will, is having a mentoring adult, a caring adult in their life. So that's a really important one for both school connectedness and resiliency. So now we get to our results, and here is the elementary student responses. On the left, we have positive aspects. So students feel safe. I on average, 84% of our students, over 84% of our students said they feel safe in their schools. This is on page 69 of that document, and I'll go through those with you. I have them marked here. Again, this is elementary, and we only ask the 3 through 5 elementary students these questions. These are not asked pre-K through 2. The second way, second positive aspect of our climate survey was students shows that they either like or feel okay about their school. That can be shown on page 73. 96.7% of our students say that they like or feel okay about their school. The third option there was, I don't like it. The next one down, students feel like adults care about them. And hopefully, I'm sure you can see the connection again between the school connectedness and these strengths that we're showing through our climate survey from the students. This can be seen on page 75. The adults in this school care about me. So over 97% of our students that responded said that they feel adults care about them a lot or okay. Students feel that there's a clear rules against physical violence. That can be found on page 86 of the student responses. 92%, this was a yes or no, 92% of the students say yes, there's clear rules against physical violence in our school. And then the last one, last but not least, students say that their peers will try to stop others from insulting or making fun of other students. That's on page 87. 84%, over 84% of students responded positively to this. And this was another yes or no. So 84% of students said that, yeah, my classmates will stick up when someone's getting picked on. So those are all obviously positives. The areas that we still need to focus on as far as climate goes, 8.4% of students said that, or reported that their peers don't like them very much. When you compare that to our numbers in the elementary level, that's over 100 kids. And so if we have over 100 kids in the 3 through 5 schools that feel like their peers don't like them very much, clearly there's work to be done. And again, that ties directly into feeling welcome in the school and feeling a sense of belonging. So that's definitely something to improve. 64% of students reported that there are cliques that exclude others and make them feel bad. So these 2 points are kind of related to each other. Again, cliques are very common, but to have good school connectedness, we want cliques that are like a Venn diagram kind of overlap, and kids can go from one group of friends to another group of friends. So these are clearly areas that we can work on.
Tony, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Please.
How did you get these answers? The kids were given the survey, or I forgot?
All students were provided the option to give the survey, and I have the number of responses from the schools, so I added those up and I compared them to our current enrollment numbers in order to figure out the percentages. And I calculated the percentages by combining the 3 through 5 schools for certain answers, or as you'll see, the secondary schools for others.
And the surveys are multiple choice. They're done on the computer, they're multiple choice.
Says yes or no.
Well, meaning, it's yes, no, or a lot, sometimes never, it's just not open-ended written answers for our students.
The responses, the possible responses are on the far left of each page.
Right.
So you pick any page. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
No problem. Next, we have the secondary student responses. Again, let's start with the positive aspects. Secondary, this is middle and high school. Students feel welcome at the school. You could find this on page 74. Oh, excuse me. You could find this on page 72. Over 85% of students either agreed or strongly agreed with this statement. I feel welcome at this school. So the possible responses here were strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, or I don't know. So again, over 85% of students reacted positively to this question. The next one was, I feel physically safe at school. That's on page 74 of the student responses. The possible responses, all the time, most of the time, some of the time, none of the time, 80% of students felt physically safe at the school. And then a similarity between the secondary student responses and the elementary. Students feel there are clear rules against physical violence at the secondary schools, at our middle schools and our high schools. And that's on page 86. 92% of kids, 92% of kids. So they do feel physically safe. There were a few different areas of focus still for the secondary level. The first one, I've been treated unfairly, or a second question was, I've seen others treated unfairly due to physical appearance. For this particular question, there is a multitude of possible answers. This is on page 76. So kids could report, I've been treated unfairly because of A, B, C, D, E, F. They could pick multiple ones. And the one that stuck out the most to me, well, clearly, the majority have this has not happened to, but of the ones that stuck out, physical appearance was the most. And again, this is all tied into wellness in general, for both our counselors and our physical educators and our health educators, teaching about proper body image and feeling good about ourselves, and there's clearly work in this area. 29%, almost 30% of students feel that there is, don't feel there's a trusted adult they can go to for help. Again, that's a very strong indicator of school connectedness. We want every student to have at least one adult, multiple adults that they feel comfortable going to. If they have a mentor at school, we know that they're going to do a lot better. So almost 30% of our kids. 58.3% reported that there are cliques that exclude others and make them feel bad. Again, notice the difference between that and the elementary levels. And the last one is may sound familiar. Willingness of peers to stop others from insulting or making fun. That was a strength in the elementary school, but at the secondary level, it really declines and it's now a weakness. At the elementary school, 84% of students felt that their peers would stick up for one another. And at the secondary level, only just over 60% of students feel that way. So there's a big drop-off after elementary school as far as these cliques being formed and kids not sticking up for one another. So again, it's a clear area that we could improve upon. As far as the parent responses, I didn't do plus or minus. I kind of want people to take it their own way. The items that I've highlighted and are sharing, again, are tied to how students feel about that connectedness piece. So tying it back to school connectedness. So my child likes to go to school each day. 78% of parents said that was true. So for the parent survey, that was on page 37. 87% of parents said all the time or most of the time that they're actually, I'm sorry, 78%. Oops. There's a trusted adult in the school whom my child can go to for help, 88.3%. The school is physically safe, 93.8%. And there are cliques in school who exclude others. At the elementary level, 23.7% responded, and at the secondary level, 51.8%. So again, that kind of mirrors what we're seeing from the student responses. As far as staff responses go, I focused again on the students and the perspective of what the teachers see for the students. So I've seen students push, slap, punch, or beat up other students more than once, 38% of faculty members. There are cliques who exclude others and make them feel bad, 41.2%. Students will try to stop their peers from insulting and making fun of others, over 84%. and students respect each other's differences, gender, race, culture, and so on, over 88%. So I think there are some highlights there and also some numbers that are concerning and worrisome. District participation rates. Again, I took over this year for 17-18, but I found the percentages from last year. I highlighted the students. I had a lot more information on the students, and I shared a lot more because our participation rates were a lot higher, and it increased over 5% from last administration. So that's definitely a plus. The parents dipped about 5%, parent responses. And so at 16, just over 16%, I don't know if that's a true representation of how all the parents feel. So I put some items up there for you, but again, I don't know if it's a true representation of the majority of how our parents are feeling. As far as the staff surveys go, I calculated at 46%. It was difficult to come to that calculation. I'm not sure how it was done last time, so I'm going to say it's pretty steady as far as our staff participation goes with the survey.
We're all not required to do it, I take, huh?
Each building handles it a little differently. What we do is we have a window for the administration of the surveys, and we're going to administer it, I believe, in March, but after what happened in Parkland, Florida, we decided to push back the window to try and let things settle a little bit, and we were concerned that it may skew some of our data. And so we pushed that window back, and they had about a month to complete it. And so, again, how it's administered.
Sometimes too much time is not good, though.
I agree. And actually, I'm going to speak to that point coming up. So the Connecticut State Department of Education mandates that we give the school climate surveys every 2 years. And Wallingford Public Schools administers the surveys annually to students in grades 3 through 12, parents, pre-K through 12, and staff pre-K through 12.
I really didn't mean that. I meant they should have a month to do it.
Right. I agree.
Or maybe you didn't.
Yep. Yeah, I gotcha. And I'm going to speak to that point very, very soon. Very soon. So the Climate Committee recommendations, I've gotten together with the District Climate Committee a number of times this year, and we've kind of talked about, and as I learned about the process, our recommendations are that we administer the school climate surveys every 2 years, with your permission. And we adjust the administration window, not just in the length, but also in the time of year. I've contacted the state. The law does not say it has to be done in March when we had done it before. We could do it any time. So with input from the District Climate Committee, with input from building administrators, we would look at that.
Tony, how long does it take to actually take the survey?
Takes about 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh,
I mean,
that's short?
it's yeah.
Okay.
I took it, Kathy, it took me a good 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
All
On
right.
my
So
phone.
why couldn't it be part of a PD session?
So that's a great question, and well, here's the reasoning why we would like to push the climate surveys to the state mandate of every 2 years. We want to build more robust and effective climate plans, and so that means this isn't something we would disregard every other year. The building climate committees would still meet every single year, but they would come up with a 2-year climate plan with checks in order to better address the areas of need. Because what happens right now at the beginning of the school year, historically, the building principals would get together a climate committee. They would look at the previous year's results. They would come up with their plan, which are due in October. Sometimes we receive them in November. So here the plans are getting started in November. And then how long do we have to implement them before there's the next administration of a survey? And so I want to put more attention to this by, again, having a more robust plan. I believe it'll increase participation because we'll build that into the plan. There are clearly some schools that have higher participation rates. So what I'm going to do, leading the district committee, the district climate committee, is we'll talk to those schools and have them share what strategies are you doing to have 95% of staff complete the survey. So yes, that's a great suggestion, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is one of the techniques being used at one of our schools that has a higher participation rate.
You know, I agree with every 2 years. I understand the robust thing and take
Yeah.
2 years to make a plan. However, I do feel that there are some issues that were raised that, yeah, it's good to have a plan, but I think some things need to be addressed immediately.
And part of what I would direct is that the schools can't just have a 2-year plan. You have to have a 2-year plan with progress checks, with dipsticks on certain specific issues, like you're suggesting, that we want to know what's going on.
Right. I mean, if it's kids pushing and shoving, that was one I noticed was by the kids. And
Yeah.
by the
Yes.
I mean, I think that's something an administrator at the very beginning of the year tells the teachers somehow how to
Yeah.
work on that during that school year, even though they're making plans
Yep.
for a bigger plan. Something's got to be done. You can't wait 2 years for that to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And
Maybe pick out the things that are the most glaring
Yep.
that need to be worked on and sort of work on something for that year.
Absolutely. And again, the 2-year goal, it's not just a goal at the end of 2 years. We're going to have, it's like a SMART goal. We're going to have short-term goals, we're going to have the long-term goals for the 2 years. And the schools will certainly be highly recommended that they do some progress checks, and whether it be just with students or just with staff, but on those really important and scarier issues, yeah, they need to know more than just 2 years out.
Is this survey something that we created, or is this coming down from the state?
Great question. The state, again, requires the survey,
Right.
and they require certain questions on the survey. I have a list of those questions. I don't know them off the top of my head, but the schools have the freedom to add questions. They cannot take away those required questions. But I think, and again, I want to do this over 2 years because I want to spend a little more time and thought into the specific questions that we have. There are some schools that have added questions that are very, very telling. I know Lyman Hall, if you look at the end of the student surveys, Lyman Hall has some great questions in there. And so what I would like to see, again, as part of this more robust plan, across the level, I would like to have the same survey. I would like our high school kids taking the same survey. And so that means the different climate committees need to talk and say, okay, let's come to an agreement on what questions should be on there. I really like this one. I really like this one. We may need to compromise on a few. Same thing with middle school. Same thing with our 3 through 5s. Same thing with our pre-K through 2 for the parents and for the staff. And so, again, looking at those questions, and I think those questions should be tied into the school connectedness data and the research, because we know that that's going to drive and improve climate. So let's make sure we're measuring those things.
I'm upset with the 16% from the parents. Maybe I should know the answer to this question. What sort of things do we do a couple of questions, to let the parents know the survey is out there, and to kind of keep advertising it or some way encouraging them to do it. Number 2, how much time do they have to fill it out? And number 3, are they going to see the results of this, and how are they going to, is it just online? Is it a website? Are they going to get a copy, hard copy? Those are the 3 questions I have.
Okay, well, let's take the first question. How do the parents know about it? Again, it's up to the building how they want to disseminate that information. A lot of them will put it forth in their newsletters or their email blasts. They'll have a link to it. I know some schools, during open houses or events that they have, they'll have a laptop open and people can go. As far as how long they have, it's up to them however long they need to take. Yeah, yep. And then you're, sure.
Can I just interrupt for
Please.
1 second? It's still within the administration window, though. So whatever the window is, say it's 4 weeks. for students, staff, and parents. So generally, what the administrators will do at the opening of the window, they email blast it out. And then they might email blast it weekly. But it closes when the district window closes.
So it's like 4 weeks.
Yes. And every building reminds in a different way.
And
But they do remind?
yes.
Yeah, because
So they
building
monitoring
Yes.
they are. Building administrators want the feedback just as much as the district wants the feedback. So they have really developed unique ways. Sometimes it's a school messenger phone call. Don't forget, the survey window closes on Friday. Please take a moment. We've email blasted it out, to every family. Having whether it's at a scholastic book fair, parent-teacher conference night, otherwise having laptops out at the beginning of the school, set up, ready to go. You just click away at the survey and get it done, because while the state questions can't be changed, they're very valuable information that the school gets back. But even more so, the 5 or so questions that building climate committees choose to put on there serves a very personalized purpose for each one of those buildings, whether it's communication, whether it is specific to responsive classroom. If you look through, you'll see themes in the questions that they've added onto the survey that they use for decisions based on, how do we want to communicate with parents, and what do parents want in terms of how we communicate with them? Is it email? Is it school bulletin? Is it note in the backpack? Whatnot? Because it's important. You want your message going out to homes, and you want it in the way that parents want to receive it. So, they are very interested in getting as many parents to sign up and do it. And part of it too goes back to, their own conversations at the end of year when they're looking at their surveys and their results and how to move forward to do their school improvement plans.
With all due respect to the administrators, though, is it being monitored that each of them are doing these things to get that filled out and brought back? I mean, let's face it. There could be some very telling things.
Sure.
That they don't want.
And
They're
here's
not responded a certain way.
Mhm.
So maybe they're not pushing it. I mean, I'm trying to be respectful to them, but
Yeah.
I have to say it.
and
So I've been there.
here's where we have to be careful. It is anonymous, and we need to keep, by law, it needs to be anonymous, and we want it to be anonymous so people are more honest and open. So having it be anonymous makes it extremely challenging, difficult to track. Oh, you didn't take it,
Right.
given the format that we have. So
I think it's one thing I'm going to do is parents, because as a board member, and I'm sure you all experience this, you run into people at a hockey game or something like that. Oh, did you hear? See, my answer is going to be right now, did you fill out the climate survey? Right.
yeah,
And I wonder just how many of them did.
yeah.
The ones that complained about it.
Sorry.
Kathy?
So 2 questions. I believe it's 100 questions. Is that correct for this survey, or am I confusing it with the other one? I think I'm confusing it with the other one. How many
Yeah.
questions are on the survey?
It depends based on the audience. So, let's see, the parent responses, up to 67.
60, about, okay, 67. And are they told, and I don't know, Carrie, if you can answer this, maybe at least for the school that you used to be principal at, are they told it's less than 15 minutes it's no more than 15 minutes to take this? Because that could be what's turning people off, thinking, okay, I don't have freaking time for this.
And it might be a survey jaded or survey
Right.
fatigue.
Right,
And-
exactly. But if
and
they
it-
know it's going to take less than
Right.
15 minutes, then maybe they can say, okay, I'll find 15 minutes
I don't
and sit
think
down
I
and
ever
do it.
put a timestamp on it, but it was referenced as a short survey, but an important one. And so I believe every administrator does, on numerous occasions will stress the importance of, answering the questions and taking the few moments to do it. But, I think that might be a recommendation for the future to say that, you're looking at about a 15-minute window to take it, regardless of the level.
And I
So
have
that-
heard feedback related to that, they say it's anonymous, but they can still know who's filling
That's
it
the
out.
other problem,
And
yeah.
that's sadly, it's ridiculous. There's no way for
Right.
us to know
Right.
whose responses are whose, but there is that perception out there. And so, again, I want a 2-year plan, and part of that 2-year plan is to include strategies to increase participation. The 2-year plan is not just we're going to do A, B, and C with the students. The 2-year plan will include on this date when we have this event, we're going to have laptops open or Chromebooks open, and we are going to advertise in A, B, and C different types of ways. So I want that as part of the plan, so the buildings would be more likely to.
Because my other concern is, I'm with Mike on the 16%. That's ridiculously low. That's very,
Yeah.
very concerning. And the other thing is I'll just average it out to be, say, let's 30% of kids that didn't take the survey. So did they not take it because they're part of the negative, aspect of the kids that we really need to be worrying about? Thinking, I'm not going to bother taking it because I'm excluded. I feel excluded anyway. Because those are the kids I'm concerned about. Even when we come up with, we have 97%, success with this particular question. Well, what about those 3%? And I know we can't identify those kids, but those are the kids I'm worried about. And how are we going to?
There are sensitive questions on there, and it states right when you start to take it that this is totally voluntary. It's up to you if you want to take this. You can skip questions. You can skip every question. And so, again, the law puts us in a little tough position as far as sitting every kid down and saying, it's for a great purpose. It's to improve what we're doing. And again, the school connectedness, the data and the research is clear that this is vital. And there's an empirical connection between climate and academic perforance and what goes on.
And I'm sorry it's still I still have it the floor right now. So anyway, I'm going to take one more question.
That's okay.
Are the kids told the results of the survey? Did they get are they given any feedback regarding the survey?
Again, this is my first year taking this on. I'm not sure how the building principals share this with their students.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking that question is I'm wondering if the kids actually saw that there was a response to some of the areas that we need to improve in, and that we can then show them a year later how that response has increased the positive, taken some of the negative out and made more of the kids into the positive column.
And to be honest, administering it every single year, I don't think there's the time for a building administrator or a building climate committee to take the results and show it to the student population in order to come up with the next survey and administer the next survey. It's such a quick turnover. But I would like to see that.
Well, because what I'm thinking is that if the kids saw, wow, they're really doing something about this, you'd get more kids taking the survey the next time around.
Absolutely.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, Carrie, when we send the email out to the parents, is the link to the survey right there in the email? So they
Generally,
just
yes.
click on it?
Yep.
Okay.
Just like it's embedded into newsletters, so that it's right there to click.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ms. Riccio?
One of the things that has come out of some of the PTACs is that for parents who have multiple children who might have a second grader, fourth grader, sixth grader, they need to take that survey 3 times. So that's 67 questions times 3. And there might not be, every administrator may be saying this is what is needed for our school survey, but I know just from being with the 2 sister schools together at a PTO PTAC meeting, the idea is when they talk about survey, one and done, and it's not really always thought about, you need to do it for every school, every student. So that 16% could be a little bit misleading because parents may think they got it for all their students and they may not have. The other thing is last year we took it in March, and I know it's a set window, but this year we took it in April, and so really there was an April vacation in there too. So I think with families either getting ready for April vacation or coming back from April vacation, that could have played into it as well.
Could be. I think one of the benefits, if you choose to move forward with the longer every 2 years, you also have the ability to pinpoint and schedule the time of administration that schools are doing night events with parents or otherwise. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in the planning of when you're giving the survey because everybody is busy and sometimes you're reading your emails and you're not able to quickly just take the survey as soon as you open it and then it gets buried. Speaking from mom experience. And so having the ability to be in the building and take it right then and there is really, I think, beneficial to looking at increased participation, which I do feel lends itself better to the every 2 years than it's trying to squeeze everything into one school year.
Karen?
I had a concern when I looked at page 18, which covers the staff responses to items 26 and 27, having to do with questions and concerns about this district's bullying harassment policies and non-discrimination policies. In my view, that should be 100% know who they should be contacting.
Yeah.
That really concerns me. There should be no question in any staff member's mind about if they need information, if they see bullying going on, who to go to and how to straighten that out. I mean, this is not, to me, acceptable. Every staff member should know that information.
And I think that's something that I could have an immediate impact on, again, being new in this role, making that information easily accessible and very clear, whether it be on the district website or sharing with the building administrators, hey, this is the best place on your website to put that.
Yeah, I
And
think
there is
that's a very
annual-
important thing.
There is annual training for all staff members on both of those, and there's district-specific information within those trainings.
For some reason,
Right.
right, so I don't know if they missed the in-servicing, I'm not sure what occurred. But I think, these are two very important policies, bullying, harassment, and non-discrimination. I mean, every single staff member should know how to access the person and if they have
And similar
concerns.
to a previous question, there are some schools with that 100%. And so talking to, when I have that district climate committee together,
Right.
that's something I address and say, okay, we are doing it extremely well in some places. Let's share some practices
Right.
to improve that. Thank you.
Mr. Votto?
I don't think you answered my third question.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. What was the third one?
Somebody interrupted me. Parents, how are they gonna get the feedback?
And that's something I'm learning about, and I think that would be up to the building administrators to try and have a plan for how they want to do that. I think from the district level, I could share this on our website, and people could have access to the presentation, if that works. But building administrators, again, just like you share it with the students, and you may get more response next time and buy-in, that's probably the same result as the parents, so.
I'm all for doing it every 2 years, but with that caveat that I mentioned before, some things that are immediate and need attention right away, I think those have to be discussed in the beginning of the school year by the principal and the teachers and whatnot. I also feel, as Kathy was trying to say, or not trying, but say,
You're probably right, trying.
that the kids need to see the results, because I think that's very important, especially if they have some serious concerns. They need to know, maybe not the results, but what's gonna happen as a result of what they wrote.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Well, anybody who filled it out. And one other question, are there any board members on that school climate committee?
No, there are not. This is, it's kind of like a management team where I have representatives from each school come once every 2 or 3 months, and we sit down. So I got to meet with that group 3 times since becoming interim school counseling coordinator, and since this was part of my responsibilities.
All right, thank you.
Kind of adding to what Mike said, I think also if the parents knew that only 16% were responding, that may say, because it happens. There's that survey, well, I know a lot of parents are doing it, but when they see the low numbers, they go, wait a minute, maybe, take the 15 minutes.
It sounds shockingly low, but to me, it's not. I'm wondering what the state average is for parents taking surveys.
And I don't know that. I can certainly contact Joanne Freiberg and ask her if she has numbers on
I would suspect
that.
we're probably higher, believe it or not, than the state average. That's what I would suspect. And I also think with multiple kids, honestly, I took it once. I didn't take it 3 times this year. I took it once. So I think that's important to take that 16% into consideration if you cut it down and really looked at, is that 16% of the amount of students or the amount of parents, families in the district? So
So,
Ms. Raccio, I know you had something,
yeah, no,
sorry.
I just want to say from PTAC this year that there are a couple sister schools in the elementary level that have really embraced the survey and shared it at their local PTACs. And they've even, they came up with a Glows and Grows open-ended survey that's just on their website that parents can log in and give comments at any time. And surprisingly, to their benefit, it's been a lot more glows than grows. So that is one way I think that we could take that best practice and try to model that at least throughout the rest of the elementary schools. I know there's been other schools that haven't been as successful in trying to get the information out to parents, but as we find the wins, just to try and capitalize on those and push them throughout the rest of the schools, I think that's a great opportunity.
And I think it also goes to communication and messaging. You know, while for years they've lived on school-based websites, but do people even know that they're there? And, you know, how do we make sure that our parent community knows where to find the necessary things like the climate plan, school improvement plans, et cetera? So having that, you know, while it might be consistently on everybody's website, but how are we getting that message out to our families and to our parents? So whether it's at open house, a part of the principal's presentation, at a minimum, at PTAC and PTO meetings, shared with the group, you know, and just reference time and time again so that everybody gets that clear message that regardless of what school you're in, this is where to find it, this is how the climate plan was created for our building, and what does it mean, and what is the data telling us, and how we're moving forward, and just keep reflecting back on that every so often, not just the one time of year that maybe you caught that newsletter, maybe you didn't, maybe you got to open house but you didn't make it to the principal's presentation. It's just making sure that there's a reoccurring theme of, hey, check this out, this is where it is, don't forget to, you know, to take a look when you have a moment, so that everybody has a clear idea of what the schools are working on.
You know, I don't want to be remiss, but I'm not saying this, but, you know, the survey did show a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's something
Absolutely.
we need to be very proud of.
Yes.
I think it shows a lot of great things that are happening in this system. And, you know, even though it is 16, and I understand what you're saying, it cannot, maybe it's probably the norm, but we also have to remember we're not the norm, this school system. We do so many things out of the box that a lot of school systems do not do, and that parents are aware of. We are a very active school community that does reach out to parents all the time. There's great communication from where I stand, and that's why I think the 16% sort of bothered me. But let me also say, this is not totally a new concept. I've been on the board almost 20 years, and I can remember we had a superintendent, and you remember this too, every year sent out a survey, picked a school,
Right.
and kids, teachers, and parents all got the survey.
Right.
And the actual survey was showed to the full board
Right.
what people wrote. It was done on just one school.
Right.
But it's something we've always been active in trying to do in this system. And I think it needs to be said, that we do make a concerted effort. Because let's face it, some of the stuff that we read, between this and that health survey, can get you pretty depressed. Right. Some of the things that come out of it. But on the other hand, there are a lot of great things too. So there is a balance. And the only place we can go is keep going further. And as we're all trying to say here, go ahead with the 2-year plan and come up with better plans to kind of address these issues. And I wish you luck that you continue to do it and we get good results.
Thank you. I've already attended training in this area, and I've already signed up for even more training. And I've talked with central office administration as far as throughout the year, and it was their idea, and it's amazing, and I'm going to tap into it as far as climate goes, but throughout the year, providing the administrators professional development, which I think throughout the country kind of lacks. The administrators, they're the ones planning it. They're not receiving a whole lot. So throughout next year, I've already started to develop a plan to give the administrators professional development on climate, on restorative practices, on tying this all together, on current practices that we're doing, but tying it together, making it have it make sense and be workable going forward. So,
Thank you. Yes,
Aaron, two questions, or two comments. Well, one's a question. Aaron,
yes.
as a parent of
Yes.
as a parent of multiple kids in this system, obviously. No, that's not necessarily true, because you could be private schools. But anyway.
They're all in,
wherever you-
yeah. Most of them.
Having to fill out the survey more than once, would you be more willing to do it if if each school was at a different time of the year? Do you think you would have been more inclined to fill out more than one survey if each school did it at a different time?
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. I think that sometimes, so we get communication from the main office weekly, from teachers weekly, and then there's things that come out from central office. So when you multiply that by 3 or 4 kids, and then you add a 15-minute survey on top of that, sometimes it doesn't matter when it comes out, it's going to get buried and lost. So we do a great job communicating, sometimes even more overboard. For me, you, on the other hand, probably like it, right?
Well, we have our sister schools, one sister school does a monthly newsletter and one does weekly. So it depends how many students you have in which areas. And then our high school does I know Lyman Hall does weekly news, but Sheehan does monthly.
Because I thought I had
So-
heard that each school could pick a different time to do it. Does they have to all do it at the same time?
Yeah, all the schools, same time, and.
They have to do it at the same
I think the
time.
impetus for that
The
was.
state doesn't
I-
care.
I
No,
would
the state
prefer to
doesn't
do it
care.
every other year.
Mm.
Now, I think that the issue is when you have a school that is a 3-year gap and you're doing it every other year, it changes.
Mhm.
There's more turnover. If it's a 5 or a 6-year, your traditional K through 5 elementary schools, and you have 6 years in that building, you can really address changes more. With a short, 3 years, I think it's a little harder to address. You can certainly address the major concerns, the things that need to be
Safety.
right away. I am a favor of 2 years, of a 2-year rollout, but we have shorter schools, less grade levels.
And the other question is, or the comment to Tony would be, perhaps there could be an indicator that parents can fill out, how many children do you have in this school? So in other words, they're filling out for a particular, I can remember one year I had 4 kids in one school. I certainly wouldn't take the survey 4 times. So, this survey represents 4 kids, as opposed to thinking it's a 1-to-1.
But she's counted 3, she's expected to take it 3 times though. Well, yeah, because for each student.
Yeah.
Even with triplets in the same grade in the same school.
Right, so there's a
She gets
perfect
one
example.
parent count for one student, that's it.
I'm sure she did.
You think she did it 3 times?
I don't think so.
Any other comments?
I should have said that.
Is he finished, or, we kind of cut him off?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, so do we want to take consensus moving forward on doing this survey every other year?
Yes.
Is that what he needs?
Are we ready for that? Do you
Yeah.
need that?
Yep.
Ms. Raccio?
Yes.
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 All right, every other year it is.
With
With the caveat that the building principals address specific, right, areas of need yearly.
And share data.
Thank you, Mr. Loomis. Okay, mastery-based learning update?
Okay, so this is informational. It's nothing that needs consensus moving forward. But I just wanted to end the school year with kind of an update as to what we accomplished this year and where we're looking for next year. So as it relates to 2 big buckets, habits of work, this year were done monthly. A summative, holistic score was placed into Power School at the 6-12 level and at the K-5. 6-12 parents were able to view their child's house score in the parent portal through Power School, and that was the only place where it was listed. For K-5, it was placed in Power School monthly, and then it was also placed on the report card. So habits of work were placed social growth and work habits at the elementary level. And now the 3 standards, preparation for learning, interactions with peers, and engagement, show up on all report cards for K-5 and through the special areas as well. So we will continue to do that going into the next school year. However, we have decided at the 6-12 level to put the house scores on the report card. This provides a little bit more visibility to the habits of work. For parents who are not engaging in the parent portal on a regular basis, it gives the parents an opportunity to see them on the report card for each class. And it's a step forward. In addition, the teacher has the option, in addition to the monthly summative that they would put into Power Schools, the requirement, they could also tag particular assignments aligned to the standards of aligned to habits of work, if it's a natural fit. So they can do both. With that step forward, we need to continue our messaging home to parents, so that, one, we review what are the habits of work, and what does each standard encompass, and how they are scored. This year, we spent a lot of time at grade levels, at department meetings, with calibration exercises at the school level to ensure that each teacher is utilizing them in the same way. And we'll continue that work into next year as well. Calibration isn't just a one and done type of activity. It was very pleasing to see that the whole building faculty meeting calibration exercises were very, very consistent. So we had mixed groups at every table, mixed grades, mixed content, and everybody, for the most part, is viewing, those scores relatively consistently, which is nice. Moving forward into next year, they will continue to do that. How also plays the house habits of work. Also plays a role within redos and retakes. So when a student is applying for a redo retake, how is the habits of work is one of those considerations in terms of approval for redos and retakes. And so again, messaging of that, both habits of work, its alignment with redo and retakes, and just the redo and retake guidelines for the district and how it impacts each department will be communicated at the beginning of the school year to both students and families. While redo and retake has not changed at all in the last year, every department, 6-12, had the opportunity to take a look at the guidelines, not the criteria for redo and retake, but each department's wishes for those guidelines, from the form to what you're allowed to redo and retake, and all have decided to stay consistent with what originally was created and agreed upon by each department. I think it's important each year to give them the opportunity to take a look. They might want to tweak a form, they might want to look at some of the work, but they have a level of comfort right now with what's in place. Students are utilizing the opportunity for redo and retake. And there seems to be a comfort level right now with the process, the forms, the structure, and they're getting more comfortable with using that habits of work as part of the rationale as to whether or not a student, will be granted the redo and retake. So in that bucket, that's moving forward next year. The change would be for the 6-12 level for it to appear on the report card. And we have our messaging to do from the broader district committee and central office this year and at the start of next year to ensure that we continue that message. And again, like anything else, it's not something that can be done once and just say, oh, well, we put it out there at the beginning of the school year. We need to ensure that that message continues throughout the school year, whether it's at the end of the quarters or at the beginning of each trimester or at the beginning of each semester. We want to ensure that there's multiple opportunities for communication both to students and families. So do you have any questions about habits of work?
Go ahead, Mr. Rotto.
Okay. Did you say that the habits of work will now be put on the report card?
Yes.
Is that what you said? So we have to make up new report cards?
No, it's a matter of adding a line, because everything's created within PowerSchool.
But are there a
So
list of habits of work?
there are 3.
Three, okay.
Mhm.
You know, I have to say, 2 of my biggest concerns and most important to me, I think, on a report card are the habits of work and comments. And I don't think comments are being put on every kid's report card, and I think that's wrong. And I'm hoping that this gets back and that administrators instruct their faculties to not only put it on the report card, but progress reports. You know, sometimes it's just a matter of pushing a button because there's those comments that are already,
Numbers, yeah.
you know, what do you call that? They're
Standard.
They're
the
yeah.
standard, and you don't have to bother writing it out. Even that's better than nothing, although sometimes it's not enough. But I really firmly believe that a comment and those habits of work are really more important than the grade, because it tells a parent exactly where their child might need some help, or where they're doing very well, or if there's a problem in the classroom, how to deal with it. And I'm so glad to hear it's gonna be on the report card, because I think people need to know. You know, when I was in school, it was like the checks, pluses, and minuses, and that was a whole list. It was a whole a whole page of the report card. Those were, they weren't called how, but they were nevertheless. But I really think those 2 things are very good, but I like to make sure that the word is out, that the comments should be put on both progress reports and report cards.
I will make sure that your concern is addressed with the administrators and that we take a look at that.
Thank you.
Along that habits of work line, will habits of work, since it's gonna show up on high school report cards, will it show up at all on transcripts?
So right now, actually, we just talked about that today at central office. And what we need to do is look at the transcript itself, and we have to look at the guide that goes along with the transcript. So right now, I'm going to say, right now, the plan is for the report card. But once we start putting things on report cards, we do have to look at the impact of the transcript.
The transcript that gets produced out of PowerSchool, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
You have to, okay.
Yep.
Ms. Raccio?
As far as PowerSchool goes, there are some teachers, I think, that might have a best practice compared to some others, and it might just be an educational or expanded knowledge of how to use it, where with the retakes, redos, although I'm guessing that the volume of retakes and redos have dropped this year compared to when it first came out. There's some teachers that actually will show that it's a retake and they'll list it as a new assignment, and then they'll just star the first one, so it's excluded from grade. So as a parent, when you go in there, you can say, oh, here's the retake grade and here's what's there. You know what the first score was, you know what the second one is. There's other teachers that just go back and change the grade from whatever, a C to a B or whatever it would be. So if we could somehow, I don't know if it's too much to ask to be consistent across all teachers, but maybe at least for, like, by department, everybody do it the same, so that parents know what to actually look for when they're in there. Because we haven't had very few retakes at our house this year, but when it has been there, it's like, is the grade changed? Is the grade changed? And then you don't really know
You
if
don't know.
the grade never changed because it didn't go up, or if the grade just hasn't been changed.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
Any other questions? I will say, I went to a breakfast last week. It was, there's 5 really competitive schools: Harvard, Stanford, Georgetown, Princeton, I forget.
Yale?
No. Penn. And I specifically asked a mastery-based learning question, because we're not the only districts heading there. And I specifically asked what transcripts are looking like, what, feedback they've had. And every single one responded with, we read transcripts from many different types of schools all over the world, and that mastery-based learning is obviously, kind of the wave of the future, and they are adept at reading and trained in reading many different types of transcripts, and it would not make a difference. Many of them recalculate their grades and things like that anyway, using their own formulas. So, I just wanted to add that's something that they're not worried about, they're not concerned about, because they're adept at reading and trained in reading many different types transcripts.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the second kind of focus are on the standards and indicators. So the curriculum department for quite some time has worked tirelessly with their departments and their teachers to refine the indicators that are aligned to our graduation standards and our course standards. And while some content areas are further ahead, math and ELA in particular, they've been working with these indicators for quite some time. The rest of the departments are kind of gaining and catching up. So as we look towards next year to ensure that everybody's moving forward, but respecting where everybody's starting from, what our plan is to have the curriculum coordinators for each one of their departments make that next step based on where they're currently at. So for example, English, language arts, and math have been engaging with their indicators for more than a year, 2 years. They're already putting summative assessment scores by indicator in PowerSchool. So it helps to align the work that we're doing to the indicators and to the units. It provides teachers an opportunity to look at student work and calibrate against scoring criteria. It looks at our curriculum and how it's being introduced to students and how our students are receiving that instruction. So for the other departments and for the other content areas, they are next year working with, in some cases, indicators for a second year in a row. So they're ready to make that next step into putting assessments, both formative and summative, into PowerSchool as a first step. Some content areas are really just working with their indicators for the first time. A lot of their curriculum is new. It's been revised to include the transferable skills and their indicators. So they're in instructional alignment. They're looking at the assignments they're putting in front of students and how does it align back to the indicators within each unit. They're looking at how student work is aligned to the indicator with what rigor. They're looking at, things that they've done, projects, assessments, otherwise, and ensuring that it aligns in many cases. So district-wide, one of the things that we would like to do, best practice for everyone, is to ensure that our learning objectives, our learning targets are posted visually in the room for everybody. It won't matter that it is math or science, CNA classes, CTE classes, kindergarten, preschool, 12th grade electives. We want to ensure that our students are, one, understanding what the focus of instruction is for the day, that our teachers are able to bring it to that student understanding, and that everybody has a clear focus for the learning that's taking place within that unit from day to day. Secondly, across the district, what we would like our staff to do is whatever assignments that are going forward for students, whether it is a long-term project or something done in class, that assignment should be tagged to an indicator. This allows our staff to look at the work we're putting in front of kids and make those instructional decisions as to whether or not it's a perfect alignment to the indicator that the lesson is focusing in on. Is it a strong connection? Is it a rigorous connection? And this will help when we come back to departments, grade levels, faculty meetings, to sit down and say, okay, we're at the start of a unit. We're introducing new content. This is the assignment we gave. Is it too much for this early in the unit? Is it too deep? Is it too rigorous? Or is it just enough? Or does it not align as well as we thought it originally aligned? And if it doesn't, should we still be using it with kids? I think it's important before, as people are engaging with the revisions to all of the units, which have come fast and furious, with the indicators that have been revised over time based on feedback from our instructors, that we now make that tie to the instructional activities that are put in front of students to ensure that there is that direct correlation. This year, throughout PD, a lot of our focus has been on assessment, both summative and formative. How do we measure whether our students are learning based on the instruction we're providing? This is that next logical step to say, now that we have where they're at within the unit through our formative assessment, what is the next step, and do our instructional activities align to that? So we're moving in that direction over the next year to give all of our instructors of many courses and content the time to engage with the units at a deeper level, to look at the indicators and have that depth of knowledge about what it looks like when you're instructing students and then what you're asking students to accomplish. And those content departments that are ready to keep moving forward, move beyond just the summative entry score in PowerSchool, move on to other assignments as well, they'll make those steps moving forward. Each curriculum coordinator is evaluating their department's next steps, but at least the basic minimum for everybody across the district will be the same, in that learning objectives and learning targets are posted. Student work, whatever it is or whatever type of assignment it is directly aligned to one of the indicators that is within the unit to ensure that there's that consistency and that connection between instruction and learning. Questions?
That was very thorough. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just feel like at our board meetings,
Yeah.
at our board meetings, when I give the monthly update, this is a culmination of a year of really listening to the different departments and hearing where they're comfortable and where they're still where they still have questions and wonderings. It respects people where they are in terms of new coursework. Like, I take the science department, they're embarking on a major shift. So to jump forward just to align them where ELA and math would be isn't respectful to where their department is. Our coordinators have worked really hard all year long, aligning indicators to the units, working with the departments, and they're making that move based on moving forward, because we want to move forward, but taking into consideration where everybody is at. And I think that is the key to ensuring that we're doing this the right way, and that we are keeping our eye on our students and what they need, but also what our teachers need as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Public comment? Public comment? No, we're good? Okay, seeing no public comment, this meeting is adjourned.